Hello and welcome to today's episode of TSARP. I'm your host, Andrew Weir, and today our co host is Steven.
Hi guys.
Today's a really special episode because we're here with Francisco Cervantes, the Director of Creative Learning at Scratch.
Woo! Hello.
So, you want to tell us a little about what you do at Scratch?
Yeah, I work on focusing how the product is used. So at the Scratch Foundation, we have Scratch and Scratch Junior, and focused on how our products are used, not just what the product is. And so that means make sure the product is playful, make sure we have opportunities for creating with our peers and friends, and that we're working on projects that we're passionate about.
That's really awesome. So, when did you start working for Scratch?
I started working with the Scratch team in December of 2021, and I previously worked as a researcher with the Lifelong Kindergartner Group at MIT Media Lab around 2010.
So, you said you worked with the Scratch team a little before you actually joined them. What were you doing at that time?
Yeah, the National Science Foundation, which is a large federal agency, they gave funding to the Lifelong Kindergarten Group at MIT Media Lab to take a look at how Scratch was being used in formal learning environments, or school settings, and to learn more about what kids and users were using with that. And so my job at that time was to travel between Boston and New York, going into different classrooms, meeting Scratchers, meeting teachers, and asking them what kind of projects they were doing, how they're using Scratch, and kind of also asking them questions about what they were learning through their use of Scratch.
Yeah, that's awesome. For a little background, I know a lot of our listeners know, but we started learning Scratch a long time ago. But like you were saying, we learned it first in school, which was really cool, and we have a whole program there and teachers that know this stuff, and it actually goes through a program called Kidoyo, and they have tons of courseware and challenges on Scratch, and yeah, so I know what you're talking about, we have our own smaller program
Yeah.
here. But yeah, so that's really awesome. What is your favorite thing about the Scratch team or the Scratch platform or, community?
Yeah, I think my favorite team is that it's my favorite thing is about the Scratch online community, I guess, or even the Scratch project, is that there's an online community. There's a place where you can share your project and have a bunch of people play with it, get feedback from others, and so I love that sense of community. I love it's an opportunity to be kind to someone, and spread kindness, and express that emotion, as well as care someone else, give someone else a shout out. It's an opportunity to connect with somebody else. I love when projects are online or from a team, or there's a collaboration. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to do that. And I think I always like to say, like, if it doesn't involve friends and it's not fun, then I'm probably not doing it. And I think Scratch is a great place where you can involve your friends and just have fun in a playful, joyful environment.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I mean, one of the things we created this podcast for is like that community. We wanted to expand and build or create our own community really around coding, especially for this age, that younger age. I mean, that's what Scratch is really doing. So yeah, I mean that you when you go onto the Scratch platform, you see all these different games, and what's great is the Scratch Studios too, and like having these groups of people, that really come together because of Scratch. Most of them don't know each other in the real world, but Scratch creates this way to communicate and really talk about what everyone's interested in, which is, of course, coding um, and creating. So,
Yeah, and I don't, and there are very few communities that have, or very few kind of coding environments that have that sense of community, right? And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity to take advantage and explore and experiment. And I do think it's not as easy also to join a community as well, and so it's also always fun to do that with friends, or like you said, like in a classroom sometimes.
yeah. So, Stephen, I know you had a question you really wanted to ask about color mode. So, you want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah. So I saw recently that Scratch had added the new like that light mode kind of. I forget what it's called.
High
The
contrast mode?
color
Yeah, high
mode.
contrast. So now I'm wondering, is there ever gonna be like a dark mode? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm going for that too. I want a dark mode as well. It's one of the most requested features, and I want all kinds of modes as well. I would love to open it up as like a design challenge for others to create your own work modes, your own themes. And so I think, like for example, I give a lot of presentations, and I would love a facilitation mode. Where I can put it up on a projector. I don't know if you ever put your project in a projector or the
Mm,
monitor, and it kind of some things magnify and some things don't. And so I would love even some of that where some parts are hidden and other parts are more focused. And my personal dream would be even a collaboration mode. A product
yes.
a product Coco did something like that, and it's pretty fun. But yeah, I think it's just the start. I think of like future modes to come.
Yeah, you said collaboration mode. We've been thinking about that for a long time, and that's going to bring me into my next question. But collaboration modes are like it reminds me of Replit,
Yeah,
and their collaboration mode. But we, in our program at our middle school, what we do a lot is we have a lot of collaboration, and
cool.
we love to make games together, form our own little groups, give ourselves a name and make games and really share them with everyone. And I think that is something that we've been talking about, like how, like, I wonder if they're ever going to do it. But what's really cool about Scratch is how it's open source. So it allows you to take the Scratch platform and add on to it. So no one's done it yet, but like what's cool about it is you could, like, someone else could come along and take Scratch and add that in a collaboration mode onto Scratch. And I think that's something really cool about it. But I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and part of me just want to gives a shout out to Andres Monroy Hernandez, who was a PhD student at the time at MIT Media Lab and worked on like the online community of the work, and he looked at how collaborative and creative communities exist and how we share ideas and build on each other's work, and so the Scratch Online community I think just represents that, and he designed the remix feature, right, which I love, and it's a shout
Yes.
out it's a shout out to like to me. So it's a shout out to hip hop culture, right? Where we influence each other in a community of creators and makers. And so, and I don't know if you guys know, that's why it's called Scratch. It's a reference to the DJ culture that grew out of a Bronx, New York. And so that's why it's a huge shout out to them. But while the source is while the Scratch's source code is open source, it's also closed development. You can see inside, but then you can also see inside Scratch projects, right? And so you can and I feel that carries the idea of open source even further. Yes, like Scratch is open source, but also when you see inside, you get to see how code. I see the code inside and learn how to read code, create new code based on those ideas, and so it's not just about the code, but rather like the creative approach that someone else took to create that project, right? And the thinking behind that code, and you get to get inside a creator. And I think that's super powerful because you may not have another Scratcher in your same house, right? But to get inside someone else's head around the world, that's extremely powerful. And I just love to see what's going on behind the curtain as well, and see their works in progress sometimes.
Yeah, open, like you said, the remix feature, it's a great learning tool, right? You see these masterpieces that people make on Scratch and you're like, how did they do it? And it's great because you can answer that question yourself by clicking see inside and really looking at it. And it's really great for learning. And yeah, really, really cool that they have that. And I think that's one of the defining
It
features
is.
of Scratch.
It is. It is,
Yeah.
and and to me, it's like I love hip hop music, and so hip hop music is always constantly sampling other songs, right? Whether it be a song from the '60s or 2000s, whatever it is. It's a lot of hip hop samples other work, and I always love going into there and seeing like who did you sample, who did you use, And I think to me is the similar thing with Scratch of like you can see inside, remix it, and then also give credit to someone. It's really important to give credit and build off of that, and I think that's just what makes the community so awesome that we can give shout outs to each other, and like build on each other's work.
Yeah, it's great that, like you said, it's built into Scratch, that giving credit idea, and you can see who you took it from, with the fork history.
Yeah,
And that's really great, because something, especially at this level, in school, they're always talking about, make sure to cite sources and that
exactly.
stuff, and
Yeah,
it's kind of like a role model, to show like you can take other people's work as long as you give credit. So that's really
yeah. And it's just like writing, right? Or even composing and other stuff. Like when we're writing an essay, we cite our sources, and I think it's an opportunity to do that as well as developers. Developers are always citing and borrowing each other's work, So it's awesome. I think it carries, I think, that spirit.
yes, definitely.
I thought of a question, and I'm wondering, do do you plan to like do anything similar to hackathons?
Yeah, I think so. We've been promoting and holding in-person events, and so we kind of took a pause during the past few years due to COVID and the pandemic. But join us for Scratch Day 2024 next year, and these are kind of this is kind of like I think our version of hackathon events, right, where we come together. It's it's not built around like necessarily a challenge, but I think you can bring your own challenge into that space, right? And being able to do that. And so I think Scratch Days are really kind of spaces where we promote themes and topics, and uh, rather than a competition type of style, right? And so and there are organizations that host like hackathons and where they're using Scratch, right? And I think I participated as a judge in some of them, and I love. And in those spaces, it's less about like who's got the most finished product and really who's providing a unique perspective, who's using it. I think one of my, I guess, my pet peeves is like sometimes like I go to a hackathon and I'm not going to be the person using what I created, so I think I always prefer like a hackathon or challenges or spaces where we can make something that we like that I can share back with my grandma or I can share back with my, I think those are like wonderful spaces. When you run back and like share with that, I think that's really important. Like, and so I'm very competitive as well. I play a lot of sports as well, and so like I'm not saying competition is always bad, but I think competition for competition's sake is probably sometimes where we kind of step away from that. But there's plenty of other. I think Scratch Days is a wonderful space for that.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that, Stephen. Like, there's so many different type of competitions. One that we're very involved with right now is every week we're working for the company I mentioned, Kidoyo, or working with, I should say, on it's called Kidoyo Dark Mode, where it's a game jam, and which is just it's a hackathon, it's a competition, and but you have more time, so you have that time to creatively express what you want to do, but it guides you with a theme, and that's great. And those themes can be all different things. But I mean, it's something we're very involved with, and we love to do. And it's great to see what everyone makes. And the language, they're allowed to use any programming language, but what they normally come back to is Scratch. And what is great about Scratch is because sometimes you just want to make a game, and there's all these tools right in front of you. It's great to just be able to jump in there and make a game.
Yeah, and you don't need to install anything, right? You can just get going.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of like professional developers that make a bunch of games and projects on Scratch, and part of what we hear from them is like it's so nice to just focus on something where I can just build it and then click share right away without having to take care of everything. Don't have to buy like web space, don't have to install some compiler. It's so easy to publish and share. And yes, take advantage of that. To be able to do that is really cool.
Yeah, so you talked a little about Scratch Day, and you just had the Scratch Conference 2023.
We did.
Um, yeah, so I was watching it.
Are
Really
you
cool.
nice?
Yeah,
Great to
can
hear.
you tell us a little about what Scratch Day 2024 is going to be like, and how
We
you
don't
can
know.
become a part of it?
Yeah, we don't know. We're still planning. I think part of it is supporting our local community. We're kind of headquarters out in Boston, so a lot of what we're thinking is how can we energize and connect and amplify the existing work. and then there's already Scratch Day events going on throughout the world, or folks organizing. And so part of what we're leaning into is, I couldn't really say like what it is we're going to build on, because we're still we're going to check in with our community and collaborate. It's a collaborative process, but I think
Mm.
part of that is just how can, I think one of the big questions that runs through my head is, how can we make you, how can we support you in being more awesome, right? So you have awesome ideas. How can we support you in doing more of that awesomeness with friends and being able to share that out? And then also, how do we connect folks across? And so it's really, and we're not talking about like a giant Zoom call type of room or something like that. But we want to connect folks around the world who are Canadian. And so, of course, our online platform does that. But we're just kind of brainstorming right now and thinking of other ways of how do we connect people, and how do they provide a space for folks to engage with each other.
Yeah, I love like events like that, whether they're in person or online, and they're just a great space to connect with other people. Of course, like you said, that's what the Scratch platform is for.
Yeah,
But it's great when you can talk to them, and I think that what's great about what you guys do is, you're always innovating and always working towards other ways you can do that. So that's really cool.
yeah. And hopefully we can do a lot more of that. As you probably know, Scratch started out of MIT Media Lab, and now we've become our own foundation, our own 501, what's called the 501c3 foundation, which is like a nonprofit foundation. We're really trying to do more interviews like this, do a lot more visits, put out the call a lot more for new ideas, generate and bring that back. It's also kind of a growth process, I think, for us. And so, yeah, we're hoping to innovate a lot more. I'm really excited for the next 5 years, because we've got some great folks who've come on the team, and we're looking to scale. And I think an example is like what you said, a high color contrast, and to other kind of dark mode and other features like that.
So, on the same idea of projects, are there any current projects that like the Scratch team is working on that is like not confidential and that you can share with us?
Yeah. So you've heard of Scratch Lab? I've heard of
Yeah.
Scratch Lab. Yeah. So Scratch Lab is a big part of our work. It's going to be a bigger part of our work going forward. And so that um, what Scratch Lab is an opportunity. It's another playground in a way, right? And it's a playground. Think of it as like a playground next to this very big playground, where we get to like create new things out of there. We get to tinker with them, get feedback, and so that's where the high color contrast work, animated text, video sensing, and there's other new kind of features and things that we want to test out in that space. And so anything Scratch Lab is a great place that you can also check out what we're working on. That's new. The only tricky part is that you can't upload and save your project um, to the Scratch Lab community from there. But that's probably one of the spaces where we're going to be innovating a lot more in the near future. And so whether it be through extensions or new ways to connect.
As you said about extensions, it's always cool to see, the add-ons and what
Yeah.
um is, being created and what you guys are working on. So yeah, I mean the extensions add a whole nother layer to Scratch, whether it's music or connecting it with physical devices or different things. So that's always cool.
Yeah. That's, more works, more of that work.
Before we end it off for today, are there any Scratch games you've seen recently that you've thought about after you played it, or that stuck in your head that you would like to share, or anything you've seen recently that you really liked?
Yeah, so we just wrapped up Scratch Camp this last Friday, and so definitely go out and check out our Scratch Camp studios if you hadn't. There's several weeks of studios that you can participate. I think some of there was a Mars rock collector that I saw by Pizza Pie, and then also a Mars a 360 uh, mobile friendly platform game by Stargold that was up there. And then one of my favorite ones recently is also which is not Scratch Camp, but I'll see if I can find a project called This Is America. Um, it's more me ERP, but I think that's their extension. And it's they did a music video and created a animation of that. And I love how they just overlaid the movements. It took so much work, I bet, to get that done. I think they said it took them a few days. But I just love the when a project has a good beat to it and a good dancing. That always is enjoyable.
Yeah, I like even when I'm not creating games on Scratch, I love just to go there and see what other people are making, and
Mhm.
the featured project section is always a great place to start.
Yeah,
And there's always really cool stuff going on there. So,
awesome.
um, yeah. So, is there anything else you would like to add or to say?
I think I just want to say thank you for bringing me on here. Thank you for all the scratchers out there. I think you're the ones that make the Scratch online community and our products awesome. And so, just a shout out to everyone who got stuck at a place, who got so frustrated, and then took a break, came back, had a glass of water, and then just came back with a vengeance and just with even more strength. I think it takes a lot of guts and to persevere and keep trying. And so shout out to everyone who's ever gotten stuck out there and found a way around that or through that.
Yeah, I really agree with what you say. Sometimes people just get that block, and they can't think. They've been coding so long, trying to figure out a fix to the bug or figure out how to do something, and you come back and they're excited again, they're ready to go, and they just keep creating. Well, thank you for joining us today. This was really great. You shared a lot of great insight on what Scratch is doing, and thank you to all the listeners who listened till the end. And we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.